Hey beautiful people, my name's Kristen. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Happy New Year's if you are watching this close to either the last day of the year or the first day. So I wanted to go over books that I read in the month of December, kind of what's been going on, how my readings kind of wrapped up. I have read 118 books in 2023. So I'm going to I have to debate which ones make the top 10, but that will be coming soon. But right now, I just want to share what I read in December because I had some really good reads. Now, not as many as I normally read. In fact, I requested in my TBR video for you to input on the 6 books that I wanted to try to add, and all 6 got votes. So I think what I'm going to do, since I did not get to any of those 6, is just move them into 2024 at the top of the list for January or February. So they will all be coming soon. I appreciate the input and the feedback and just affirmation that they were some great books. So what did I read this month? This month I read my last book that had been chosen by my subscribers last year in 2023, and that was This Tender Land by William Kent Kruger. I had not read anything by him, and I loved this book. This is 5-star for me. This is a beautiful story of, well, it has some difficult topics as well. It is a kind of reform boys' school. It's not like harsh with like severe abuse like the Nickel Boys, but it's definitely less desirable situation than ideal. You have people that are basically taking people's money and really focused on money and it as a business as opposed to the welfare of the students. And so it's going after a person that's a relative, but they don't really know them, but they are needing to get away from the home. And so they go on this journey and they go across the tender land and they encounter, each section is a different encounter that the students encounter with different people out in the real world and how they're kind of acclimated, treated, how do they survive, how do they get along, what's going on. And the writing is just very beautiful, and it's kind of a found family type of situation, and I thoroughly loved it. Totally looking forward to other books by him. Maybe will become a favorite author. Just really appreciated the beauty of the character development and the plot itself. So read that. For my nonfiction, I did finish the book that I started, in November, Stephen Ambrose's Undaunted Courage. And it's really funny because he wanted to use the title from a Thomas Jefferson direct quote, which was, "Of courage undaunted, possessing a firmness and perseverance of purpose, with nothing but impossibilities could divert from its direction," and goes on with a description of basically Lewis and Clark, and it's kind of a tribute of him by President Jefferson, Thomas Jefferson. So he was going to call it Of Courage Undaunted. That was going to be the title. And his wife said, don't call it that. Call it Undaunted Courage. And so he kind of gave her credit, and he said, anybody that is like ballsy enough to edit Thomas Jefferson, should get a mention. So that sets the pace right off about how the documentary style of writing it is. It is a lot of information, but told in fun little stories. So and lots of footnotes, lots of background about what's happening. I first was interested in finding out more about Lewis and Clark, having visited the Heinz Museum in Pittsburgh, and they had a whole section on just Lewis and Clark, and I had such a good time that I wanted to know more. And this goes into basically the entire life of Lewis specifically, just such an interesting life, such interesting times, just learning more about history, learning about the geography, nature, the Native Americans, the different Native Americans, and how we established or didn't establish relationships with them. It was really not a fast-paced, action-packed kind of thing, because the truth was, even when there was action, we know how it turns out. Like, it's not like that suspense, like, gosh, are they going to survive this crisis? They did. But it was still super interesting education experience. So I highly recommend it if you have any interest in finding out about that part of history or that part of the development of the country of the United States. So then I read another 5-star book to me and to anybody who's probably done Brandon Sanderson Cosmere. And this is specifically, the Sunlit Man is specifically the kind of side story of one of his characters from Bridge 4 from the Stormlight series. So this was a book that he wrote during the lockdown, part of the secret projects, and this is for his fans to give some more backstory, side story, all these kind of details that he's wanted to kind of share with us and flesh out. But having said that, if you have not read specifically the Stormlight, or just a lot of Brandon Sanderson Cosmere, this book is probably not going to be one that you want to pick up first. But if you do, and you like Brandon Sanderson like I love him, then this is a really great book. I had a lot of fun with it. Now, Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads did invite us and challenge us to do a Cthulhu reading for Christmas, which I'm not sure what the mythical monster Cthulhu has to do with Christmas, but why not? I had enjoyed Lovecraft for the first time just last year, and I said I'll reread one because I have the book already. I've got his Cthulhu Mythos Tales. So I just reread The Call of Cthulhu, and I appreciated it more even the second time I read it. Just the in-depth creature that you kind of have some evidence that this mythical creature exists, but it's unknown. It's what is it? How does this work? How does it control people? Why is there cultish action? It's creepy. It's a little disturbing. And the writing is great. It's very much kind of Edgar Allan Poe, but with more like modern classic style of cadence, I find. So I had a lot of fun with that. Glad to have participated. For my actual classic of December, I read this is the book that has been on my shelves longer than any other book. It's Kate Chopin, The Awakening and Other Stories. So I really started out loving her writing, just thought, gosh, this is just beautiful prose and poetic writing and descriptive that I can like smell the air. But she does, true to the title, it's a woman who's taking charge of her own wants and desires and sexuality and all that kind of stuff, which I thought is great. But you don't really like her characters. Like, I thought, okay, well, maybe it's just the main story because this woman needs to step out of her box and be uber assertive. But she ends up making really choices that I don't support necessarily. I don't want to spoil anything because I don't do spoilers on the channel, but I found that all these short stories had this kind of melancholy vibe, and so I ended up not really loving this book, although I'm appreciative that I read it and that I experienced her and that I participated in that classic. So there was one book that I need to mention that I decided wasn't the book for me, either at this time or maybe just I'm not the right target audience, but I was going to buddy read with Caitlyn at Bandy's Books, and she's awesome, and I would definitely want to continue to check out what she thinks of her books, and hopefully she'll be gracious enough to allow me to jump in and buddy read in the future with her another book on her TBR. But that was Noopiming. So this book, I think I read about 100 pages of it, but I think I shared like a lot of it is just one-liner, sections. It's just like these short little sections. And what I found, it's so there's a lot of symbolism, right? You've got this kind of abstract woman with 7 different aspects of her, and they are waking up and merging and talking to one another, and they represent different systems of her body, thought, consciousness. And so it's very creative, but it's a lot of work. Like those kind of books to me require, I kept having to like put my thumbs and fingers and flip back and forth. And then there was a lot of explicit language, a lot of like the very harshest swear words, which if I am reading about war or I'm reading about deep loss, that doesn't bother me, but it felt very jarring and shocking when it was just only 2 sentences and there's the 4-letter words. And I'm just like, what's the context of that? What's the need for that? And maybe, if maybe I was in a different mindset or whatever, it would make sense. But I think I'm not either in the right mindset or that I'm not the right target audience for that particular book. So I decided we're just going to let that one go because I have all these other books that I wanted to read and get to and experience in the month of December. So sometimes it's okay to just say this isn't the right time or book for me. I am currently starting to read 2 that I will not get to in December, but they will move into January with me. That is my Robert Jordan book 10. I hardly started it. I've only read about 45 pages, and I think it's like 700 or 800 pages, as well as I'm about 2/3 into Crime and Punishment by Dostoyevsky. It's my first experience with him. I love his writing. The first third of the book was outstanding. I was just so into it. The second third has been really slow. We're going into other characters and other side stories, and I'm not really there for it, but I am interested enough that I'm going to finish that book, and that will be my classic for the month of January. So those are the books that I read in December, and I look forward to kind of doing a final wrap up early January, letting you know my top books, what I thought of. I basically met my goal of 100 books, having read 118, and I read all the ones that were on my TBR that my subscribers picked. So we're just going to say successful year. Let me know if you have read any of these or want to read any of these now, and if there's something, exciting coming up in January that I should know about, because I have been out of things. I mean, I have had a lot of family, a lot of special things going on in my job and whatnot, so I do feel a little behind, y'all, not gonna lie. So I will catch up with you. Hope that you stay caught up with me. Happy New Year. Blessings to you on your reading, and best wishes in the coming year. Y'all take care.